Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into the Necron Relic options, discussing the best ways of how to use them. Then we'll be giving each one a rating out of 5, with 1 being the lowest and 5 being the best. This of course is only going to be compared to one another and not relics from other codexes. Now before getting into today's actual video, just wanted to bring your guys' attention to an online store called the Magnet Baron. They specialise in custom magnets and custom stands for your models played on the tabletop. I wanted to bring your attention today to some of the small and medium sized posable flight stands that they have available, which work perfectly for floating units. So from our Necron force, you're looking at the units such as Tomb Blades and the Locust Destroyers, for example. And then in terms of medium stuff, you're looking at the Command Barges and the Annihilation Barges. So often you find that these stands are getting snapped due to transporting the models. These stands are not only posable, but they're magnetised, so your models can be folded away, which is much safer when you transport into your games. Now the acrylic stands have been pre-drilled and the kit comes with the exact magnet, so you don't even need to worry about the drilling or finding the right magnet sizes. And then further to add to this, the kit will come with a rock anchor which simply sits on your model's base and completely hides the magnet from view, all while looking like a piece of base terrain. Then the model of course is posable because the magnet underneath the model itself will be a ball bearing, so it can roll into any pose you see fit. Now a link will be in the description, or simply find them on your search engines by typing in the Magnet Baron. They've got plenty of other tabletop bits and bobs, so check them out. That's the Magnet Baron, links in the description. So for the majority of the video I'm going to be referring to relics located on pages 66 and 67 of the Necron book. So before getting into the actual relics, we first need to ensure everybody understands how relics actually work. So skip ahead a little bit if you already know, as I'm sure a lot of you already will. But for the less experienced players within the 40k game, I'm going to quickly break down how relics operate in terms of playing Necrons. So step 1, your warlord must be a Necron, which pretty much all of the time will be. Step 2, you can only have a relic on a non-named character. Now named characters will have something in the datasheet that will say only one of this model could be taken for your entire army. These kind of characters you can't customize at all, and also Catan shards cannot take the relics either. Just bear that one in mind. Then step 3, and this one's the trickiest one, especially if you're a new player. You need to make sure the relic you've chosen is valid for the model. So the relic usually states that it's replacing a certain weapon or piece of war gear, so the model must have the original piece of war gear to begin with, or purchase it for that character if they're eligible to take that said war gear. So for example, you can't be taking an Orb of Eternity relic on a Hexmark Destroyer because it requires a Resurrection Orb and the Hexmark Destroyer has no access to one. So not all relics require you to have any of the war gear. Some will just let you take it straight away. Now the final step is to keep your eye on the dynasty specific relics. Now those relics will state which dynasty can actually use it, so if your army isn't from that dynasty then you cannot be using it even if your model has the correct war gear. Something that isn't always clear to a newer player is the army can only take one single relic free of charge, so in order to take more relics within your Necron force you need to use the stratagem Dynastic Heirlooms, which is only one command point each time you use it. You can't be using it to give a model 2 relics, and you can only use the stratagem once unless you're playing a strike force battle, in which case the stratagem can be used twice, or if you're playing the onslaught battle, which is the bigger battles, then you can use the stratagem 3 times. So you can get more depending on your game size. The bigger the game, the more you can use in terms of the stratagems. Okay, that's all the basic stuff out the way. If you did skip ahead, welcome back. Let's begin with the first relic, which is the Orb of Eternity. Now in order to get hold of an Orb of Eternity relic, you must first purchase the Resurrection Orb, which is only available to the following units. So you've got a Necron Lord, an Overlord, a Catacomb Command Barge and the Locust Lord. Now the Resurrection Orb costs you 30 points, and you can have multiple Resurrection Orbs within a list, but only one of them can be upgraded to an Orb of Eternity relic. So the Resurrection Orb itself does the following. So once per battle in the command phase, you select a dynasty unit within 6 inches of the bearer that is not at its starting strength, and you can effectively reanimate any of the dead models that have already left the battlefield. Now reanimation usually requires a 5+ to roll for every single wound for the specific model lost. For example, if you've lost one single Necron warrior, you're going to get one single dice and you need a 5+ as you only got one wound. So on a 5+ you'll get that Necron warrior back, whereas a Scorpic Destroyer has 3 wounds, so you're going to get 3 dice to play with, but you require all 3 to have a 5+ roll. So very unlikely to get one of those back as opposed to a Necron warrior. So now when you upgrade this relic to an Orb of Eternity relic, you're going to simply add 1 to the roll. So effectively you now require a 4+ roll instead of a 5+. So this gives those 1 wound models a 50% chance of standing up, and those are the kinds of units you should be aiming to use the orbs on. Now in particular warriors again, as they also get to reroll 1s due to their number is Legion ability. And it's also great on them because they can have units of up to 20, so you can even go as low as having 1 model remaining, pop the orb and have the chance of bringing 19 models back. Now this one by no means is an auto include, as your Overlord type models have a lot of other options in terms of relics, and you can also just still take a regular resurrection orb alongside a completely different kind of relic, so you can almost have the best of both worlds. Now I'd love this ability to be able to stack with the Canoptic Reanimator's ability for a +1 to the reanimation roll, but unfortunately the roll is capped at a +1 or a -1. So I think it's a pretty decent selection as far as relics go, so I'm going to be giving this a 4-star rating. Next we have the Nano Scarab Casket. Now it's not limited to a specific character this time, and you simply get to regain 2 lost wounds instead of 1 when using your Living Metal ability. Now I'm not a super fan of this relic option, but I can see its uses in some situations. It's better served on a model with a fair amount of wounds such as a Command Barge or one of the Destroyer Lord models, and you can pair it up with Enduring Will, which is the water trait for the -1 to all damage taken, which makes your character very durable. Now a Locust Lord in particular has some funky interaction with this relic, as he's also got the option of the Phylactery, which makes his Living Metal work on D3 wounds as opposed to 1 single wound. So with the relic on top it'll be D3 plus 1 wounds returned every turn. However, he only starts with 6 wounds to begin with, so it could be a little bit of overkill there. Then further to add, Locust Lords aren't that common in terms of a selection at present. And going back to that Command Barge, those barges are much better options within the relics. Maybe if this was slightly altered to D3 wounds like the Phylactery maybe, as a single wound just doesn't feel enough, so for this reason this one's only getting 2 stars. Okay, on to number 3 in the list, which is the Gauntlet of the Conflagrator. Now this one doesn't replace any weapons and can go with any other characters that can take a relic. It's got a 12-inch range, pistol 1, it's got no strength, AP or damage because in the ability section, as you can see there, it automatically hits, and instead of making a wound roll you simply roll a dice for each model within the targeted unit, and the unit will just suffer 1 mortal wound on any 6s that you score. So if you're shooting against say 30 Bloodletters, that's 30 dice, you're going to be rolling them off and any 6s are going to score mortal wounds, so you're likely on average going to get 5 mortal wounds there. So the first thing to note is that it's a pistol weapon. This is important for a few reasons. Now number 1, it can't be fired alongside other non-pistol weapons, which means a lot of the time it becomes pointless putting this relic on a character because it's going to forego their shooting with their other ranged options. Number 2, it can be shot into engagement range because it's a pistol, and number 3, if you're taking dynasties such as the Mephit Dynasty or the Healthy Paranoia from the custom dynasties, they're not going to be granting a +3 to the range of the weapon because it's a pistol weapon and it doesn't work with pistols. So for me there's a few characters that this works pretty well with. So either a character that is kitted out purely for melee, not one that you plan on advancing with of course. So you've got an Overlord, you've got the Locust Lord, that's if both don't have the Staff of Light because that's actually going to have a range attack that isn't a pistol, which you can't be shooting alongside it. However, there is a gem of a character to use, which is the Hexmark Destroyer. This model's becoming a low-key hero for me as of late, which really wasn't the case at the start of 9th edition. Metas of course have changed the game. But the reason why the Hexmark is a perfect candidate for the relic is A, he carries only pistols so they can be shot together, which isn't going to hinder his other weapons, and B, he has the deep strike mechanic, so getting into that 12-inch range is very easily achievable. So you wait for turn 2, pop in wherever there's a large unit of single wound models, shoot the relic first before shooting his own pistol options because the amount of dice that the relic grants you is determined by how many models the unit has. So if you go killing say 6 models out of the unit with the disintegrated pistols, then you're basically throwing away 6 dice from your pool when you're going to be using your relic. So you fire the relic first to get maximum outcome. Now giving this relic a star rating isn't that straightforward, as it has less uses against certain factions. For example, if you're going up against a 5-man intercessor unit, it's only going to grant you 5 dice, maybe you'll peel off a single wound from a single model. You'll be lucky to get 2 wounds and remove one of them, and then his actual pistols won't do that much better. But if you take that same relic against a 30-man Chaos Cultist unit, on average you're going to kill 5 of them, and then the pistols will probably do another 7, that's totaling 12 dead cultists, which will now need a morale test in the morale phase. And don't forget this relic works in Overwatch 2. In fact, his pistols actually hit on 2s even in Overwatch, so you can remove another buttload of cultists with his pistols and with the relic on top. That's if they're crazy enough to go charging him. I know it is very faction dependent, but I do love it as of late, so I'm going to go with a 4-star rating. Okay, on to the Bale of Darkness. A lot of players' favourites in terms of the relics here. So once per battle in the movement phase, the bearer can use the relic, and you select the bearer and a friendly core unit within 3 inches of the bearer, remove them from the battlefield and set them up anywhere on the battlefield that is more than 9 inches away from enemy models, and they have to be placed wholly within 6 inches of one another. So it is only a one-time thing, but that is fine, and it can be used in turn 1. It isn't exactly a deep strike mechanic because you're already starting on the battlefield. I think it's your most cost-effective method of getting a core unit into close proximity of an enemy unit, and it's most commonly used with warriors or lich guard. Now Immortals and Tomb Blades also do have the core keyword, but they're not so commonly used because they've got the range, and Tomb Blades in particular particular have got the speed. So who is best to take the relic on is the first question. Now there are plenty of options this time, any of the non-named characters can take it. The real question isn't who should take it, it's what core unit should you be using it with. If it's warriors, they're going to likely be taking the Ghost Reapers. They're only short range at 12 inches. You ideally want them to be hitting on 2s with an Overlord model, which is probably your prime option for that combination, because he'll be using his My Will Be Done ability every turn from then onwards. Now if you're taking Lich Guard, then an Overlord's My Will Be Done combo still applies, but if you're taking the Lich Guard with the War Scythes, then you may want to consider a Chronomancer to do the job, as a Lich Guard will still need to get into combat, so the reroll to their charge roll is very helpful, and they'll very much like that 5+ invulnerable save to go with it. Alternatively, going back to that Overlord, he can use the Implacable Conqueror Warlord trait to grant the charge rerolls to that core unit, such as your Lich Guard, but then they will lose out on the invuln saves. But if they're taking the swords and shields, they're going to have the invuln save anyway, so the combo will work nicely there. That's what I would class as the two main options. Now your Overlord and Command Barge type characters might already have a different relic, so this will then leave a few other options that are far less used, so either a Royal Warden or a Technomancer as a plan B to get your warriors to escape an area of the battle, or perhaps a Plasmancer if he wants to get in close anyway to start throwing off his mortal wounds nice and early. So using the Bale of Darkness to warp both units to a given location is like 2 birds with 1 stone. Now I asked our guys in the members Discord how they use some of the relics, and Yatas has informed the chat that when he uses his Bale of Darkness, he's always using it on a Necron Lord, one that's taking a Resurrection Orb, so that the warriors and the Lich Guard that he teleports have the buffs from the Lord, the Overlord and the Chronomancer, so I'm presuming he uses all those abilities in the command phase and then he teleports them off in the movement phase. Then he's put, now I know most players use the Veil with the Chronomancer, but I prefer an Orb and the re-rolling hit rolls of a 1. So that's how he uses the Bale of Darkness relic, and for me I think it's one of the best relics within the codex. I've got absolutely no issue with it. I don't think it needs to be improved in any shape or form, and it's an easy 5-star from me. Okay, on to the 5th option, we've got the Voltaic Staff, yet another solid option now. So this is going to be replacing a Staff of Light with the following profiles. So it's both a shooting attack and a melee attack. In terms of shooting, it's 18-inch range, assault 4, strength 6, -2 AP and 2 damage, and any 6s to hit will score 2 additional hits. And then in melee, it's strength +1, -2 AP, 2 damage. So there's 5 Necron characters that take the Staff of Light. You've got an Overlord, a Necron Lord, a Locust Lord, a Technomancer and a Command Barge. All 5 are valid options to be upgrading for the Voltaic Staff. Less so with the Necron Lord, as the main reason you're taking the Necron Lord is for the Resurrection Orb and possibly the Eternity Orb to upgrade it. The best option in my opinion here is the Command Barge, as it's a vehicle character so it can be shooting into combat, which has lots of extra attacks when you compare it to the regular Overlord on foot, who's going to be losing out on those range attacks while in engagement range. This of course is going to be added with his Gauss Cannon or his Tesla Cannon, again in engagement range, and then add on his 4 melee attacks, lots of AP, lots of damage, and note that it's an assault weapon, so advancing with it before firing can be done at a -1 to hit penalty, but they usually have a ballistic skill value of a 2 anyway. So there's a lot of flexibility there in case you did need that extra movement, because he moves 12 inches with the Command Barge, and then add D6 for the advanced move, he'll be easily getting to a new location there. Now the Technomancer probably won't require it. If you do have the command point spare, then hey, why not add the relic? For me it's another top one, so I'm going to be going with a 4-star. Okay, on to the Void Reaper next. So this one has its restrictions. Your model must have a War Scythe or a Void Scythe. Now there's absolutely no reason to buy the Void Scythe, as it's 15 points when the War Scythe is only 5, so don't ever spend the extra 10 points. Characters with the War Scythe are the Overlords, the Lords, the Command Barges and the Locust Lords, pretty much everyone that can take a Resurrection Orb. So what does the Void Reaper do? It's strength +2, -4 AP and the damage is 3, and any rules that ignore the wounds cannot be used. So you gain a little bit of damage when you compare it to the War Scythe because the damage is now 3, and it ignores Feel No Pain type saves. Not to be confused with rules that manipulate the amount of damage they take, such as Disgustingly Resilient, which is quite a common mistake. Admittedly, I've even done this in the past. Specifically, I've been doing it with the Nightbringer and his Drain Life ability. Now, if it was up to me, I'd prefer this one to ignore invuln saves instead and keep the damage at damage 2 perhaps, to prevent it from being too overpowered. But Feel No Pains are a good part of the game and becoming more common with each new codex. Now, I'm slightly disappointed that our biggest melee relic is what it is. Right now I don't feel like you need this relic over any of the other options. The added damage is the only thing I'd miss here, so I'm going to be going with a 3-star rating, purely because that damage 3 could be huge. Okay, as far as the non-dynasty specific options go, there's 2 left. Next we've got the Sempiternal Weave, done with an infantry noble only, so you're going to add 1 to the toughness and 1 to the wounds characteristics of the bearer. So it's restricted to nobles, and we've only got 2 nobles that aren't named and are infantry. Now I'd only really pair this with Enduring Will from the Warlord traits to maximise the resiliency of the character. Now if you do take this, you're not going to be putting it on a Necron Lord because he's too squishy and he's not got an in-1 save, so it's absolutely not worth it. So really it's an Overlord or nothing. Now I personally would pick nothing, as there's so many other good options within the relic section, but if you do select him, then he's now going to have a toughness value of 6 and he's going to have 6 wounds as well. Maybe Illumina Zares is a better bet to get more buffs if you really wanted to have the monster stats, but this one's not for me unfortunately. I'm going to be going with a 1-star rating. Then we've got the Arrow of Infinity. So your model is required to have a Tachyon arrow, and the relic will replace that with the following profile. So it's 120 inches, so you've virtually got the entire board to play with there. Assault 1, strength 16, minus 5 AP, and the damage is 6. But it can only be shot once per battle. So again, you're restricted to the Overlord, the one that you got from the Indominus box set. He's going to have the Tachyon arrow. So firstly, we need to see what the actual Tachyon arrow did. So that one was the same range at 120, Assault 1 again. It was only strength 12 minus 5 AP and the damage was D6 as opposed to 6. So the upgrade virtually guarantees that you wound on 2s because there's very little in terms of toughness 9. I know from the Tyrannid you can put a +1 toughness on a Turvigon within the Gorgon High Fleet. I'm sure there are others within the 40k game, but most things are going to have toughness 8 or less. But the main reason for this relic is the damage. It's a flat 6, not D6. So you're hitting on 2s, you're wounding on 2s, and you could even use the stratagem Techno-Oracle of Targeting for 1 command point, which automatically wounds the target with a single dice roll. So that's going to guarantee you wound, and you've also got command rerolls if you really need it, but inevitably you probably roll a 1 to hit. That's just the way the dice gods work. Now I think the Tachyon arrow personally is a bad selection. Now the relic version is improved, but it is only once per game, and that's the huge drawback for the relic. You need to think about what you're targeting with it. You're not likely going to be catching a character outside the Lookout Sir bubble, not early anyway, and you want to use this as early as possible just in case your Overlord dies without actually firing it. So you've got the choice of firing at elite infantry or a vehicle type model. Even if you target a Rhino or another type of transport vehicle, it's not going to be popping it, so it requires more work. And firing it against a model such as a Centurion or a Terminator, yes, it will peel a model off, but it feels a bit overkill, and once you've blown your load, that is it. Now arguably you could say that's a free relic or a single command point just to pop 6 wounds off a unit, and I do get that point, but to counter it, by taking this relic it prevents your main relic carrier from taking one of the better options within the relic area of the codex. That's where I have an issue with the Arrow of Infinity. It's not an awful relic, but it's not one I'd ever go with, so I'm going to be giving it a 2 out of 5 rating. Okay, now onto the dynasty specific options. Each of the 6 dynasties have their own relic, beginning with the Conduit of Stars, probably one of my personal favourites when I play the Mefrit dynasty. So of course it's only Mefrit models only, and the carrier must have the relic Gorse Blaster in order to upgrade to the Conduit of Stars, and this has got a 36-inch range, rapid fire 3, strength 6, minus 2 AP and 2 damage. So the only model in the entire codex that has the Relic Gorse Blaster is the Royal Warden, and ironically the Relic Gorse Blaster isn't a relic. Why GW named it that I do not know, the game's confusing enough. So the Relic Gorse Blaster was only 30-inch range, rapid fire 2, strength 5, minus 2 AP, 2 damage. So you can see the stat upgrades there. You gain 6 inches and an extra shot, which are likely turning into 2 shots due to rapid fire. And don't forget, with the Mefrit code it grants you 3 additional inches to your range, so this will become 39-inch range and it'll be double tapping at 20. The strength is also increased to 6, which is perfect for the current toughness 3 meta. So if I'm taking a Royal Warden and I'm playing the Mefrit dynasty, I'm 100% paying the CP to get the additional relic in my list. Firing this all game becomes quite fun, picking up 6 dice at strength 6, beautiful. So this one for me is 4 stars. Obviously it's only 4 stars if you're playing the Mefrit dynasty, but you can only take it while playing the Mefrit dynasty. Duh. Okay, onto the Nefrit code, one of the underperforming codes of this edition, and the relic isn't much better. It's called the Solar Staff. It's going to be replacing the Staff of Light. So we've already mentioned who can take the Staff of Light when we spoke about the Voltaic Staff. So the Solar Staff is 24-inch range, assault 6, strength 5, minus 2 AP, 1 damage, and if you score a hit against infantry units, they're going to be blinded, so they cannot fire Overwatch or set to defend. Then it's also got a melee profile, which is strength user, minus 2 AP, 1 damage, and with the same blind ability. So it is gaining 6 inches in terms of range, and twice as many shots will be fired. It's got the same AP, same damage, then the blind ability of course. Now admittedly this could be magic in those very rare instances where you're trying to charge a Tau player for example, and they're just going to be overwatching you just like that. I'd like to have seen the range a bit better so you can actually select the unit to blind more efficiently, but aside from the blind rule, it's 6 strength 5 shots with only 1 damage each, which isn't doing enough for me. Just take the Voltaic Staff, it's so much more effective and it's got 2 damage on each shot. So this one is only a 1 star from me. On to the Nihilak Dynasty, which is the dynasty I seem to play the most right now. There's no restrictions on the relic, even the Hexmark Destroyer could take it if they wanted to. It works on an Annihilate model only, add 1 to the armor saving throw, and every time the bearer loses a wound, you roll a d6, and on a 6+, the wound is not lost. Admittedly, I don't actually use this relic as characters taking damage tend to need their invuln saves as opposed to their regular armor save, and a 6+ feel no pain save isn't too bad, but doesn't warrant the relic spot in my opinion. Now you could use it on a Necron Lord to give him a 2+ save, which feels like an invuln save in a sense because a -3 AP weapon will still give him a 5+ armor save, so this is going to really protect your resurrection orb that he's carrying. I mean, you could just upgrade him to an Overlord who will have a 4+ invuln anyway, but this is of course saving you points there. Again, another relic that you'd only really spend command points on if you had spare command points. It's not a go-to for me, so I'm going to be giving it a 2 stars. Next is the Melee Dynasty with the Novak code. Their relic is the Blood Scythe. It's another swap out for your War Scythe. Don't be buying the Void Scythe, I've already explained why. You're just wasting your points there. So it's strength +2, -4 AP and 2 damage, and each time the bearer fights you get 2 additional attacks with a weapon. Virtually the same stats as a War Scythe, just with 2 extra attacks. Kind of underwhelming, at least give it a strength +3 or something. For me this is just a straight 1 star. What's funny is the Mefrit Warlord trait has the +1 to the strength in melee, yet they're the shooty code. This should be right here in my opinion. Next is my old dynasty that I've since ditched, which is the Zaoken dynasty. The custom codes are just so much better in terms of rules, hence why I've left them behind. So they've got their relic the Vanquisher's Mask. So on a Zaoken model only, at the start of the fight phase you can select a unit within 3 inches of the bearer, and that unit is not eligible to fight this phase until all eligible units from your army has done so. This will even trump that counter-offensive stratagem to be able to interrupt in the fight phase, because that only works on eligible units that can fight, whereas this makes enemy units ineligible to fight until everybody has done so. So it's a very rare fight last ability, but for me this just sucks, as Zaoken are the guys that like to stay at range with their Gorse Flayers as the rapid fire ranges increase. So getting into a fight isn't their thing, and likely it doesn't matter if they fight first or fight last, they're not going to win the fight, unless you're playing some sort of mixed dynasty list. Otherwise it's just pretty bad as far as Zaoken goes. Another 1 star from me. Put this on the Novak dynasty, then it'll be fantastic, but not the guys that are shooting at the back. Okay, on to the final one for the video. This is going to the Zaoken dynasty, which is the Sovereign's Coronal. Only works on one of the 3 nobles that you've got, which is the Overlord, the Lord and the Command Barge. So you get the following 2 abilities. So the Command Wave Amplifier, which is an aura for friendly Zaoken units within 9 inches of the bearer, and the units will benefit from the command protocols at 9 inches from character models as opposed to 6. Then the Synthetic Cortex Enhancer aura, so core units within that 9-inch bubble are going to gain benefits from both the directives of command protocols as opposed to just the one. So I think this works best on a Command Barge, as the barge's base is much bigger than the Overlord's base on foot, so your 9-inch radius is actually much bigger all round with the Command Barge. Also 2 directives is very handy, not quite the be all and end all of a game, but it's a nice boon to have each and every battle round. My slight issue, and it's only a slight issue, is you're likely going to be using the Silent King if you're playing the Zaoken dynasty, and he's the most likely going to be dominating the area that all your models are positioned, and giving them all the buffs and such. To add in a barge within an already crowded space, giving out the same ability such as the Mine Will Be Done ability and whatnot, it just feels like you're double dipping on the same ability there. What I'm trying to say is, he's not really needed when you've got the Silent King around in my opinion. But playing this code without the Silent King, then yes, this could be massive. But you're very likely going to be bringing the Silent King, as he's the main focus of this dynasty. So for the rating, I'm going to be going with a 3-star rating here. An average relic, it's not too bad overall for that code. So guys, that's the ratings for the relic options within the codex. Are there any that you're disagreeing with? Let me know below. Also remember to check out our sponsor, which is the Magnet Baron. Links in the description for that if you want to check those guys out. And then remember to like on your exits, sub if you are new. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.